All right, day 2. Hey, brothers and sisters, welcome to Appalachian Grit. I'm Tor, your host from way out here, which I'll show you around eventually. But I am in the rugged mountains of deep Appalachia, and as usual, I'm thrilled you're here. If you're new, I'll give you a quick, synopsis of my journey. Um, Believing God, the true path, it's cost me everything. My wife, family, comfort, everything that everybody else worships in this world. But in return, I've gained a closeness to God that I believe will be beneficial to you in your walk. After all, we're called to be examples, and I'm trying my damnedest to be such a thing. It's the kind of walk that this whole channel's about, and I hope it deepens your faith too. Today, I want to lay out my methodology, because I didn't do it service in the last few attempts at videos. What the great harmonizing of all of Scripture is, and what I call the framework, or the locked-in framework, where you have concepts in Scripture that are contextually immovable, is one way to say it. You leave them where it is, you let everything else float in between, given its identifiers, its qualifiers, its context, and you just kind of let the pieces of the puzzle put itself together, the picture paint itself, as I like to say. Let's see. Yeah, the whole idea is to understand these end times. Anyways, first off, let's talk about my methodology. I'm going to try to read the script, so bear with me. I don't like it either, but it is what it is. My methodology, it's a scripture-only approach. I stick to the Bible, nothing added, nothing taken away, just as Deuteronomy 4, verse 2 commands, "You shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish aught from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you." Every verse gets read in its full context, historical, cultural, and alongside the rest of Scripture as a whole, letting the text speak for itself. Here's an important thing. I reject man-made creeds, dogmas, or institutional traditions that twist the word to fit modern ideas. I'm not getting into it all here because we go down many rabbit holes, but this is my methodology. I take it all, Genesis to Revelation, plus the Apocrypha like 1st Enoch and Jubilees, as part of Israelite literature to get the whole picture. This keeps our faith built on a rock, not sand like Matthew 7, verse 24 through 27 tells us. A house built on a rock stands firm. It's practical. It gives a contradiction-free view to stand on. It's something we can count on in these days. And that is the goal here. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, folks, it's my goal. And anyways, now that leads us to the great harmonizing of all of Scripture. This isn't a scattered collection of books. It's one cohesive story, from creation to the fall, to covenant, to redemption, restoration, and so on. When you read it wholly, and I mean holistically, there's patterns that emerge. Take the Exodus in the Old Testament as a template, and you see it echo in the New Testament, like the second Exodus in Revelation 12. There's a lot of Old Testament verses that people just overlook or chuck into some arbitrary corner of Scripture that these need to be fulfilled too, folks. I cross-reference to tie it together. Romans 11, verse 17 through 24, about grafting shows the law as our foundation. Romans 3, verse 31 backs it. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Yea, we establish the law. The pitfall here is cherry picking or sliding into lawlessness. Like this is like the imagery we get in Scripture of, on the left side is like the ocean, cliff, and then you have fire on the other side, or something like that. The narrow path is narrow, and you go one step to the left or to the right, and you're falling off into something a lot worse. Full harmony demands obedience. This is something I've learned and I have established through my own life, and I wish to share these sort of revelations or testimonies with you. because a lot of people don't have the courage to step out in faith. Like my life has kind of forced me into it. I it's God's guiding hand, obviously, but I have a unique perspective because my life is on the line, and I've had to risk it with no one watching. And you understand, for some of you dudes out there, especially vets and whatnot, like you understand, like courage is easy when there's people around to be courageous for, but when you're alone, it's a whole different beast. It's a whole different beast. Anyways, let's move on. Keeping the commandments of God and the faith of Christ. This unity unlocks end times clarity. Yes. Proving God's plan is consistent from beginning to end, and it empowers us to walk with confidence, knowing the story holds together. And this is the clarity I'm trying to bring. All right, let's get into the framework. All right, that brings us to our locked-in framework as we understand it now. Picture this. Well, as I understand it, but we as in you and me. We'll get to it because it's constantly evolving. This is the expansion to the original dissertation, which was originally about taking all of Scripture to harmonize it, to understand essentially the chronology and all the details and nuance of Revelation. That's where it started. That's what I completed about a year ago. But it's evolved into something more than that, and it's constantly a work in progress. And all of my research is what spurs a lot of these videos that I do. Anyways, all right, let's get into the framework. All right, picture this: the witnesses, the 144,000, and the man-child are, if you don't know, I see them as one group, the same group of people in the end times apostles, as it were. Different phases of the same group. Basically, you have them as the mortals, as witnesses, leading the second Exodus, facing off against the beast. These are the end time shepherds who go through and teareth and treadeth down. The ones who are raised up, the prophesied shepherds that I speak about from Micah and Joel and whatnot. This is some of the end times imagery we get to. Anyways, you can disagree with me, but I've weighed this without any sort of religious context and just textually. And the way Revelation is, it's reiterative. And then you weigh it with everything else written about Scripture, called the great harmonizing of all of Scripture. People, I think the text itself, if you actually get into the grammar and the statistical relevance or statistical certainty of what are the chances that this would be there with given all the other supporting evidence compared to all of the other evidence or lack thereof, and then you try and get like a statistical number of how this could be that or this could be that, blah, blah, blah. I can't avoid it anymore. And when you see it through this lens, a lot of things start to make sense. Anyways, witnesses become the 144,000 after they are raised up. And these are the fifth seal martyrs that are the saints who are killed before everybody else, who are caught up as first fruits before the first resurrection. And they are positioned, placed at the throne of God, which, if you don't know, New Jerusalem is up there. It's up in the sky, it's up in the higher heavens, and on the top, in the middle of that city, that massive 1,500 mile square or cubed city, is a massive mountain called the Mount Zion. And on top of it is the throne room of God. And that's where the Lamb's throne is too. And the Septuagint talks about the great throne and the littler throne, which the Masoretic conveniently leaves out. Because remember, those people had a vested interest in discrediting the coming of the Messiah, which is Christ. Anyways, I'm going to try and get this through to you. I'm sorry, folks. I'm new, so don't shoot the messenger too early. All right. Their ascension happens at first fruits, at the midpoint, because I at this point I say 7 years, but not because the whole end times or tribulation lasts 7 years. Let me get this clear. When I say 7 years, I'm talking that the solidified numerical time qualifiers given to us are the 1260 days of the witnesses for them prophesying and ministering, okay? And then they are killed by the beast. And then I believe those are those fifth seal martyrs which are killed by the beast, the saints, which are defined for us, which I go into exhaustively. That they are the ones who are up underneath the altar of God before everybody else, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not avengest our blood?" You know what I mean? Like, you got to ask yourself, who are they? How did they get there? Well, if they're there before everybody else, by definition, they're the first fruits. And then by definition, first fruits is always historically, scripturally, through precedent, just through definition alone, has always had a definition to it attached that they're the first fruits, meaning they're the first ones up there. There can't be numerous groups of first fruits, people. Anyways, come up hither, and they ascended up to heaven in a cloud. And the woman remnant fled into the wilderness. Another 1260 days, which this 1260 days of the woman in the wilderness, which is the general body of Israel, the remnant of her seed, which I can get into that. Revelation 12, end of it, last verse in that chapter. Where that fits in and how it floats in between the first 1260 days and then the beast continuing 40 and 2 months, I don't quite know where it fits in. It doesn't. There's no way for me to peg it down definitively. All you can do is guess. So it's somewhere in between that, because we know that the dragon that is cast down, that goes after the man-child, after the witnesses are taken up as the man-child. You can disagree with me that too. I'll get to it eventually. But that's when he's cast down out of heaven. Because if you think Satan's already been cast out of heaven, then you haven't been reading Scripture, because he still goes to and fro, up and down, and still speaks with God. His time is coming. His judgment's been suspended until the time at hand, the appointed time, just like all things. I didn't mean to get into too much detail, but the two witnesses start off as the sealed 144,000 before shit hits the fan on earth. They lead the remnant. They die by the beast's hand, and then they're resurrected and then ascend as the man-child, which then, once they're in heaven, they are the 144,000, the Isaiah 66 nation born in a day. Yeah, and go read the whole chapter of Isaiah 66, because the context actually talks about the end times and the nations, and it's relevant. Anyways, so at some point after they ascend, before the first resurrection happens, the trumpets and the bowls begin. However you want to say that, we can get into it, but the first 5 seals occur, with the 5th seal being their death, and the 6th seal, I believe, being the time that the birth of the man-child, or the resurrection, ascension of the 2 witnesses happens. I believe that is the time that happens. And then you have the 5th seal martyrs up there doing all the thing. I hope this makes sense. I'll get into it. The whole point is not to do, an entire dissertation. I just want to get you to where I'm at. Anyways, let's see what I missed here. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I talked about the first Exodus literally being told to you in Scripture as the pattern for the end days and the end times. Like, this is how he's going to rescue us from the nations. And too many people overlook the second Exodus. And it is the mechanism by which we will be found worthy to escape these things. Go look at that word for escape. A lot of people think it's a rapture, pre-trib, this and that. It's not. That word is actually to flee, like fleeing like danger. It doesn't mean to be taken away or whisked up or this or that. The only group that's actually taken up before everybody else are the witnesses and the man-child. And the only group that's seen in heaven as first fruits are the 144,000. And we can get into the actual descriptors for them, like how do you identify them? And the two the two lampstands and the two olive trees. Well, we already know the two olive trees are the two houses that were split. The one olive tree became two. It became Israel and Judah, becoming one. All right. Ezekiel, I think it's 37 or 35. Anyways, prophesied in the end times to become one stick once again. They're going to take Israel and Judah in your hand and make it one stick. And then you have the anointed. This is a proleptic, future vision type thing with, I think it's Ezekiel. No, Jeremiah. Either way, it's in my other scriptures, or my other narratives that I write for you. The ones who stand before the God of the whole earth, the anointed ones. Okay, these are the two lampstands, the churches, because lampstands are churches. So why only two? There's only two outstanding churches that are outliers compared to the rest, and they are the righteous churches that were not rebuked, but also promised that they would receive a crown of glory and life, if they endured even unto the death. This is Smyrna and Philadelphia. And that they would escape the hour of temptation, which we can get into. And the hour of temptation is not a literal hour. It is a time period where we'll talk about, and you're going to disagree with me, but I'll show you why. Anyways, let me get to the point. I'm going off in the weeds. And if you're curious or disagree or want to talk about it, we'll get into it. We're getting into it all. I'm going to rehash a lot of the videos like this, but I'm trying to write scripts. I'm just not good at reading these things. Like, I write them, they make sense, but reading them is just seems super redundant. Anyways, the framework I'm talking about here calls us to obey, to prepare for trials. Remember, practicality in faith is what my goal is. And reject LARPing. I love that term. I'm going to use it because it's so true. And maybe it's like antiquated at this point, but back when I was still part of the world, LARPing was like a thing. I remember like cosplay and shit. Where was it? I went to a restaurant once in New Jersey, which was medieval times. I liked it. It was wonderful. My ex-wife brought me there. It was a wonderful thing. I had this big turkey leg. It was very medieval. But they were LARPing. You know what I mean? That's LARPing. It's not legit. It's just playing pretend to, I don't know. It is what it is. Let's get on to it. All right. Yeah. As I said, everything that I've said so far is based on what can clearly be established in Scripture. Everything else that's that can move, like float in between, I'm not claiming that I know where it fits perfectly. I'm saying that there are certain immutable pillars that don't move, and then everything else floats in between in their proper context, in their proper places. And that is what I'm trying to do with all of Scripture, not just Revelation. Anyways, I'll read this now. So, in wrapping up, my methodology ensures harmony, leading to a framework that lights the way, my testimony, losing it all but gaining God's deliverance and closeness, because as I've told you, folks, I'm sorry, I know, I always go tangents. I wish to get you closer to God. That is the whole goal of this, and I've come out of Christian faith, religiosity, and it's just, there's no power in that walk. just read the words for yourself and do what they say, and step out in faith, but do what's required of you. Most Christians don't realize that if you're not keeping the commandments, your prayers aren't even heard. Oh my God, I just offended everybody. I'll do a video on this. Anyways, we'll get to it. I invite you to join the remnant, because that is really what we're called to be. The remnant of who? And the remnant itself means a small minority of survivors at the end. So if everybody else is doing it, you can guarantee it's wrong. So you've got to be able to discern. I suggest you study the whole of Scripture without omitting, without twisting, without adding or taking away. Obey its commands. Just do what it says, dude, lady. And walk the ancient path that's been established from the beginning. It's talked about in the letters to the 7 churches in Revelation. The first love, it's talking about the ancient path, which was given to Adam and passed down, which is the law as it was eventually fully given at Sinai. But the law existed beforehand. It always has. Anyways, my last sentence here. The kingdom awaits those who hold fast. That kind of is my signature move. But I love you all. God bless. If you have questions, I'm sure you'll disagree, but back it up, Buttercup. Bring your scriptures and don't just try and tear me down because of your pride. We don't need that kind of crap. I'm not going to do that to you. The whole point is iron sharpening iron, that we're all edified and actually honed and ready for use when God calls us. I mean, because if you haven't seen the world, it's getting a little nuts out there. Anyways, see you later.